So what we got here is a RMZ 450 triple clamps and Kickstarter. And what we're going to be doing today is showing you how to make that look beautiful, how to make it look like a mirror finish. We're going to polish it. I'm going to show you a professional way to polish aluminum. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the process before we get started. The first thing I'm going to do is take these pieces here and see they got a cast line on them from when they were casted in a mold. And I'm going to take a 150 grit flap wheel and knock all that down, smooth this out so it's nice and smooth. Just take all the casting flaws out and get it smoothed out. Same thing with the triple clamps. It's got a nasty casting mark all the way across it, all the way around the front and back. We're going to knock that down to start with. It's basically roughing it out, and then we'll go from there. So what we were using there to rough that out was just a 150 grit, 150 grit sandpaper flap wheel. And you can do that, you know, by hand, just by using 150 grit sandpaper. Maybe a DA for what you can get with a DA sander, and the rest by hand will do just as well. So we're going to go ahead and show you how to grease this thing with a 220 grit grease wheel. shine to it. So this is a look at the parts after we've greased them with the grease wheel. Once again, that's a 220 grit wheel, and that could be done by hand as well, just with 220 grit DA and finger sanding and a little block sanding. You can accomplish the same thing. Even a little nicer if you're good at sanding and you know how to use a block. It can turn out a lot better than this. A lot more smoother and flatter. But we're going to go ahead and get on to the next step. We're going to go ahead and put on a buff wheel, start shining this stuff up. And this is just an air buff wheel. We're going to go ahead and use some green. It's a mild aluminum compound. And start polishing up this aluminum. So we couldn't quite get in all the nooks and crannies quite so good with that big air buff. So what I'm going to do is put on a 4-section hard stitch buff. And we'll just go ahead and get in all these tight areas and try to shine them up a little better. And get it smoothed out a little. It's a little choppy in there. And after we get into all the areas with the hard stitch buff, it's time to put a final buff on this and wrap it up. Now time for the finish buff. And this here is the finished product. Mirror finish, polished aluminum. You could do it by hand. You know, you've seen me using the buffing wheel and all that, but it's easy enough. You can mount, you know, a hand buffer, like for using a car buffer, and find different wheels to fit on that to put buffing compound on. And, you know, I've actually used that many times before when I'm at home. I'll just throw the buffer in a vise and get the buffing. It's a lot easier than trying to put your part in the vise and use the buffer because it gets away from you. But that's it, yeah, that's how to polish like a pro.